Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Breast Cancer Now's Facebook Live this evening. I'm Catherine. I'm one of the clinical nurse specialists. And this evening, we're going to be talking about a topic that is really very seasonal, I guess. It's travel and travel insurance, mainly travel insurance, but there hopefully will be some travel tips in there. So it is holiday time, and we know that an awful lot of people with breast cancer book holidays, maybe at the end of treatment to look forward to. Definitely those with secondary breast cancer do travel, can travel, and also want to, make memories and travel a lot as well if they can. So it's really important, this subject about travel insurance, in order to make sure you can travel safely and that things are covered in case anything goes wrong on your holiday. So some things to help you along with your holiday and some tips, but also some travel insurance. And I am absolutely delighted to be joined by Fiona, who is going to tell a little bit about her story. She also is a founder of Insure With, a company. We're not here to recommend or signpost you to particular companies, but Insure With is actually part of Fiona's story, which she's going to tell you in a moment. She's living with secondary breast cancer herself, so she's got very much a peer opportunity to be able to share what it's like to travel and find travel insurance, but also got some really good tips for you as well. As per usual, we'd like to remind you that we have a survey which will be posted in the comments below. If you're able to fill that in and give us some idea of what other things you'd like for us to present on these opportunities on Facebook Live, and also if you've got any feedback of any of the sessions that we've done as well, we will try and cover as many questions as we can that you might want to post. Remember that they are public if you're going to post a question, just in case you're going to say to us when you're going away on holiday, those sorts of things. But we are going to limit this because I'm guessing that then we might be inundated. We had a session with our Living with Secondary Breast Cancer service a couple of months ago, right at the beginning of the year, and lots of questions. So we're going to limit it to 40 minutes. I'd urge you to stay on all the way through. Fiona's got some marvellous information to be able to share with you, and it may well be that that information answers your question. But if you do want to post a question, that's absolutely fine. If there's something that we specifically do not manage to answer during the session, then we'll answer that in the coming days. So if you're going to post something, then if we've not covered it, then we will post that, as I say, a response in the coming days. So without further ado, I want to introduce Fiona from Insure With. She is, I'm going to hand over to you to introduce yourself, Fiona. Tell us a little bit about your background, how you started the company, why you started the company, and then we'll get on, and I'm going to ask you a few questions so that we can sort of have a discussion about insurance and the importance of that. So over to you.
Thank you, Catherine. I'm Fiona, and I founded Insurance With. I'm back after my own primary breast cancer diagnosis in 2005. I'd just had a baby, and I'd had all my chemotherapy, and my oncologist said to me, right, that's it. Go off, be a family, have a break, have a holiday. When you come back, we'll do some surgery and some radiotherapy and finish off your treatment. But, off you go and have a holiday. Now, I worked in insurance, and I knew it might be a wee bit tricky to get travel insurance because of my cancer diagnosis, but I didn't realize I was going to be completely uninsurable. And at that stage I was, because I hadn't physically had the cancer removed. And none of that made sense to me, because I understood risk. I worked in insurance, and I just thought, where is this risk that I'm completely uninsurable? And that's what got me thinking. And the result was creating the travel insurance brand, Insurance With. So that's me. And as Catherine says, I now live with secondary breast cancer. I just, we push to cover as many people as we can on Insurance With, and I learned so much from my own diagnosis and everybody else that I talk to in the cancer community. So that's a bit of a whistle stop on me.
I bet it's actually a really great thing for people that you deal with, that they've got somebody that understands and gets where they're coming from with regards to the difficulties of doing this and finding travel insurance. That's just something that's come to mind, really, because so often people are saying, it's very automatic, drop down lists and things. Do you do this, do that? And there's no real understanding. So I want to say thank you to you, because I guess you give an
Oh,
awful
thank
lot
you.
to people, back when you are helping them find that insurance for that holiday, whether it's a small break or whether it's a really special, opportunity to go away and enjoy and make memories.
Yeah, and it's also been able to talk to the community, and the community feel, open enough to come and talk to me. And we feed so much of that back into what we do, into the medical screening that we use, which is our own in-house medical screening. And so it's really important, the feedback that I get from people as well. But I think because they know I have cancer, they're far more open with me. But that really helps us make sure that we're offering the cover and asking the questions that people want to be, that they understand and they're not triggering and things like that. And that's really, really important to us.
Brilliant. Okay, I lost you for a little bit. I don't then at the end. Then I don't know whether anybody else did, but that was great that you it's great that you have an understanding, as I say. So we're going to get on to some questions now. We've
Mhm.
got a couple of questions beforehand, and I'll weave those into the to ask you. Obviously, the things that I'm going to ask you and the information you're going to give specific to the company that you set up, but it's really good information. So I need to start with, why have cover? What is the need for people to have cover and to go away on holiday and have that travel insurance?
So, aside from the usual baggage cover and things like that, there's cancellation covers. Now, if you've had a cancer diagnosis, um, and you're taking some sort of treatment, if anything happens, you want to be able to cancel that holiday and be able to claim for your money back. So there's that cover, but there's also the medical treatment when you're abroad, repatriation. If you can't, lots of people will say to me, oh, I'll just get a flight home if I don't feel well. But, sometimes you might not be in that position to be able to do that. So travel insurance will cover you to be repatriated back home, be it, if you need an air ambulance, or you might just need a medical escort, or you just might need, maybe a business class seat with more room if you've maybe injured yourself or something like that. So all of that sort of is covered in your travel insurance. So it's really important to have, because if you don't,
Yeah.
it could cost you a lot of money if things go wrong.
Okay, and we're talking about travel insurance with cancer, which I'm going to come on to in a moment. But
Hmm.
actually, any of us, anybody out there, really needs to be able to make sure that they've got travel insurance when they're traveling,
Exactly.
wherever they're going. So a lot of people, do say, well, what's the impact of cancer? Why does it affect my insurance? And somebody specifically, I haven't got a name, has said, can they travel with a specific treatment with Kadcyla, for instance, which we know is something that is given to both people that have primary breast cancer diagnosis and also are having ongoing treatment with for their secondary breast cancer as well.
Mhm.
So, what's the impact of cancer and its treatment on insurance, and why do people need it specifically for that?
So, the impact of cancer, it's not so much the cancer itself that's the biggest risk, it's the treatment of the cancer, because as we know, it can, affect your immunity, and you're far more likely to get infections and things like that. If you've got, say, bone mets or something like that, you're more like, you might be able to break a bone. The treatment that you're given, say, tamoxifen and those type of drugs, they can put you at increased risk of DVTs. So there is an increase in risk, and that will affect your travel insurance. But having said that, the specific question you were asking about Kadcyla or things like that, this is an ongoing treatment that people are having. Yes, you can get travel insurance while you're on that treatment. You just need to declare it in the usual way. Some travel insurance providers will ask what drugs you're on. Some will just ask if you're on a cancer treatment, and
Right.
if and Kadcyla is a cancer treatment, so you would say yes to a cancer treatment if you're on that.
Okay. And of course, the biggest question probably is, although I think we've covered it, but is, can I exclude my cancer? And I'm well. What's the point? You've covered a little bit of that already. If you're already on treatment, it's not necessarily that you're not feeling well, but it
Yeah.
is those potential side effects. And can I travel without cover, which is obviously not something we'd recommend at all.
No. So I do hear a lot of people that say, "Oh, I'm just going to exclude my cancer and get a normal policy." But I think what people don't realize is when they're excluding their cancer, it's not just the cover for cancer they're excluding, it's the cover it for cancer and anything that can be attributed to the treatment of that cancer. So as I said earlier, you're talking about, tamoxifens, DVTs, more at risk of DVTs. That wouldn't be covered. If you pick up an infection or something on holiday, there's a chance that might not be covered either if you haven't declared your cancer, because if your treatment's making you more at risk from picking up an infection. So I would always caution people to be really careful if they decide that that's what they want to do, because if something does go wrong, then they might find themselves not covered. And it isn't always as simple as jumping on the next EasyJet flight or whatever it
Yeah.
is.
Okay. And we've got a question in, so I think it says Saini, but I hope that I've read that right. Hi, my cancer was removed in October 23, so not that long ago. Silly question. Do I need to declare cancer on travel insurance? Not looking to travel until my chemo and radiotherapy is all over. But I think you've just covered that. You always need to say if you're going to be on extended treatment. You've not
Mhm.
said, Saini, whether you're on anything else. So, but I suppose the question is, if you think you've finished all of your treatment, do you still need to declare that as something that has happened
It
in the
will
past?
depend on the question. All the travel insurance providers, there's a couple of different ways they'll ask that question. Some companies will say, "Have you been treated for cancer in the last 5 years?" Now, that will mean any type of treatment, even if it's just surgery, a lumpectomy, something like that. You would have to declare that. Some might ask you, "Have you ever been diagnosed with cancer?" So then you would have to declare it, even if it was 10 years ago, you're not on treatment anymore. Um, and some might say ask in the last 10 years. Now, just because, so, for example, if somebody says, "Have you ever had cancer?" and you've got to declare it, that doesn't mean you're going to be charged more money for it. They just need a full picture of your health. So you put it all down, tell the company about it. Chances are, if it was over 10 years ago, you're not having any treatment, you won't be charged any extra money for it, but they will just have a full picture of your health. And
Okay.
it's always best to tell them.
Yeah. Okay. So honesty is the best policy, really.
Yeah,
Okay. All right. I suppose a lot of us know about the old EHIC, as they were, the
yeah,
European Insurance Health Cover Card. I can't remember whether I've got the name of that right, but now we've got GHIC because
yeah.
we're sort of different now because of Brexit, etc. What does that cover? And I know it doesn't make up for travel insurance, that you need travel insurance, but where do the two fit together?
So the EHIC, if you've still got an EHIC, it's still valid. And then when that runs out, you apply for a new card that's a GHIC. Yep, they're always worth having, and I always travel with one, but it will only give you the healthcare that the resident of that country that you're in is entitled to. And not everybody has free healthcare throughout Europe. So, for example, if you go to Greece, it's expected that the family would feed and look after the patient. So there might not be nursing care cover under the GHIC. So then you would have to pay for nursing care or have your family come in and bring you food and things like that. And you might have to pay for drugs and things like that. So it's always worth, if you are going to solely depend on a GHIC, check what you are going to get in the country that you're traveling to. But remember, you will not be covered for any repatriation at all back to the UK. And again, it's not as simple as jumping on the next flight. It,
Okay.
you know,
Yeah.
so
Okay, that's great. That's great information. I mean, what type of policies are out there as well for people to use as somebody who's had a breast cancer or a cancer diagnosis? Can you explain a little bit more about, the types of policies people might want to look at?
yeah, I mean, I think you can get really disheartened when you're first diagnosed and you go back, you try all the people that used to insure you and they're all declining you because now you've got a cancer diagnosis. But I want to assure everybody that is cover out there, is available. You just need to need to know where to look. I would always suggest after a cancer diagnosis, I know you've probably previously everybody's had a multi-trip policy or an annual policy. But I would always say, first off, start off with a single trip policy. See if you can get cover. If you can get single trip single trip cover, then look to see if the provider will offer you a multi-trip cover or an annual policy. So that would be my advice, is that, yeah, it is available. It's out there. You can look, and I think I've shared some links, and you're going to share some links with, look on Money Helper, the government website with the travel insurance directory.
Yeah, we'll pop
Um,
that website address up.
yeah, and what you should do is look for travel insurers, providers that use different medical screening systems. The Money Helper website tells you the different medical screening systems that are used, um, and that will be able. So pick a couple from there that use different medical screening systems, and then I would say pick one comparison site and run your quote through. The reason I say that is because all the comparison sites use the same medical screening system. So the results across them all are going to be there or thereabouts. You're not, you might be doing 4 or 5 quotes, and, the response, the prices you get back are all very similar. So just pick one and use Money Helper as well. And that's going to give you sort of the market and what's going to be available to you. And I'll let you ask me more questions because I've got other stuff, but I think you'll probably ask me the questions about.
Well, I suppose the next question is, you've assured people that there is cover out there, but
Mhm,
obviously, those people have already done this and already looked for cover, depending on their situation, are going to find that in some instances, it is, wow, it's a real shock to the system from the
mhm,
point of view of price. And what we can't do is wave the magic wand this evening and give anybody a really easy way of making sure that their travel insurance is much cheaper than the quote that they've probably had in the past.
mhm.
However, there may well be. I know you've got tips just to help people think about looking for cost effective cover.
Yeah.
And also, just probably jumping ahead because I'll link this together, is what types of things might you be able to think about in your travel that would help that cost of that insurance come down? What to think about. So a bit of a two-parter question there.
Okay. So to help reduce the cost, the key here is flexibility. Flexibility with your dates. When you're planning to travel, around treatment, diagnosis, things like that. So, for example, if you've say just changed treatment, um, most insurers would want you to have a period of stability, say, 4 to 6 weeks on your new treatment. If you were to leave it 12 weeks, it'll be slightly less money again, the longer you leave it from something that's changed in your treatment. As same with an operation, you can, look for covers sort of 12 to 6 weeks after you've maybe had some surgery, provided all the wounds are healing and things like that. But again, if you were to wait, 12 weeks after that, or even, 14, 15 weeks after that, you will start to see, um, a
A
difference in the price.
difference.
It'll be less money because the further you are away from that, and you're recovering well and everything like that, and you're getting more into a stable. Your cancer's not necessarily stable, but you're stable on your treatment, if that's what
Yeah.
I'm trying to say.
Okay.
Um, and again, be flexible about your destination. So, Europe is obviously going to be cheaper than if you wanted to go to Australia and New Zealand, which will be cheaper than Asia. Asia's sort of cheaper than America. And, America's cheaper to travel to than sort of Mexico, for example. So,
Yeah, I think you
think
pointed
about your
out before that
destination.
Mexico was virtually the most expensive place to travel to. Is that
It's
right?
really expensive at the moment, yeah, and I think, just it's just a very expensive place to buy travel insurance. It's the top area for
And
travel
maybe
insurance.
it might be easy or helpful to explain why that is. I mean, the medical care there is incredibly different, isn't it, from the
It's
point of view of
it's just
reliability and,
it's expensive, and I think and that's all reflected in the travel insurance premium. So basically, the healthcare is a lot more expensive there than it is sort of even in America and things like that. And I think and it's the availability there of it, so it is quite expensive. But as I say, in the majority of travel insurers, it's their top rated country. So again, think about your destination, and that's going to help. And as I say, timing of your trip.
okay.
Um,
And
That's
people that have already booked ahead, obviously, so many people are diagnosed at the time thinking about, the time I've been in the clinic, oh God, we've got a holiday sort of,
hmm
booked, etc. We'll come on to sort of when to book travel insurance, because obviously it's wise to book it at the same time for anybody in case you
Yeah,
have to go through that cancellation process. But I guess there seems to be more flexibility with some of the travel companies these days to be able to change dates. So I guess
hmm
that means that if you can change dates in order to, and you haven't bought that travel insurance yet,
yeah,
that will help you be a little bit more cost effective in purchasing that rather
yeah,
than the time. Obviously, sometimes things are, you're going for a wedding or you're going for a special trip because of
exactly. Or
a
if
particular
you,
date, so that doesn't help. But
yeah,
there seems to be that bit more flexibility with travel companies these days to be able to move that around.
yeah,
Yeah, so that's worth thinking of as well. Um, so the other thing is to come on to is really about fellow travellers, because we often think about ourselves, and
hmm
obviously as an individual and somebody that's had a cancer diagnosis might think, well, I'll get this policy because this will cover me, without thinking about the rest of the party, and that may be just one other, a friend, partner,
yeah.
whoever, or it might be a group. What would you say to people who are going with a fellow traveller, which most of us do?
Yes, so I would always recommend if you've got, say you've had a cancer diagnosis and all of the traveling parties should be on the same policy declaring your cancer. So the reason for that is if you need, say, if you're unwell and you can't travel, you've maybe picked up an infection or something's happened and you need to cancel the holiday. If you've taken out your travel insurance, you're fine. You can make your claim. You've declared your cancer. But the rest of the family and the trip depends on you being well to go. If they've got a separate policy, say they've just got cover with a bank, for example, they haven't declared your cancer on that, so they're not going to be able to cancel. They're not going to be able to put a claim on their policy because they need to cancel because of your medical
You.
condition
Mm.
because it's not been declared. So I'd always recommend that all of the travelling parties on the same policy. And again, that can happen, if you're taken ill when you're abroad and you can't travel home as planned, that policy will allow for somebody else on there to stay with you abroad and things like that. So it's always advisable if the travel is dependent on you going, everybody should be on that policy with
Okay.
your condition declared.
Okay, that's really helpful. That's something that I would never ever have thought of, I don't think, until
Yeah.
we had the session a few weeks ago, and I was in on that. So yeah, and I think an awful lot of people didn't realise that at all. So that's really helpful. What about if planning activities on holiday? Obviously, an awful lot of people are well. If they finish their treatment for primary breast cancer, they're doing really
hmm
well. We've talked about the possibility of side effects, etc. But there are also people living incredibly well with their secondary breast cancer as well. So activities are stuff that we want to go out and do there. You don't do on a holiday, and that might be doing some climbing or skiing or those
hmm
sorts of things, or it might literally be going on a boat trip and things like that. So do we have to think of the whole raft of things? And if you're planning specific activities, you need to make sure that they are covered in your insurance policy? And how do you do that?
Yeah. So all insurance policies will have activities lists that they'll cover automatically, and then you can buy extra cover for different activities. Now, all providers will be different and will have a different list. So I can't say, oh, you can go scuba diving with this and you're going to be covered. So you need to check your provider and what they cover as standard, and then what you would need to buy top-up cover for. So, for example, if you want to go skiing, you would need to buy a winter sports policy. We get a lot of people contacting us that are doing a challenge abroad to raise money for charity. They might be, climbing a mountain, doing a
Mm,
trek, things like that. You need to check how many feet above sea level you're going to be climbing to, and you might need to buy extra cover for that as well. So just check what you're doing, but you can have all that cover is available, but you just need to check the activity pack that you're buying and if you need to top that up.
okay, so there was a question before come from Beverly. Thank you, Beverly. How will I know that my insurance will cover any eventuality for my trip to Australia? So I guess it depends on what you're planning to do, and you need to go through that insurance policy and make sure that it
So
does
I
actually
think
cover that.
The watchword here is that travel insurance isn't a catch-all policy. It does not cover everything. It covers specific things, and if you've got something specific that you want cover outside the norm, then I would check with the provider that you're thinking of buying your policy with and ask the specific questions of what you want covered. There's limits to what you're covered for, limits to what you can, claim for as well. But travel insurance isn't a cover-all policy, and I think lots of people tend to think I bought travel insurance and anything that goes wrong on my holiday when I travel is going to be covered. And unfortunately, it's not. It's not a cover-all policy. There are sections that you're covered for, and some of the liability might lie with your airline and things like that. So, and it's not the responsibility of the travel insurer. So,
Okay.
you really need to check if you've got something specific in mind that you want to do on holiday. Check with your provider if that's going to be covered.
Okay, so if you're doing activities, you absolutely need to sort of stick to your
Yeah.
plan and make sure that you've got that cover.
Hmm.
I guess that begs the question: if you get there and you think, "Oh wow, I didn't know you could do that. Can I do that? Can I top it up whilst I'm here? Can I phone home and phone the insurance provider?" Is that a possibility for people?
It is for some providers, but not for others. So
Right. Okay.
again, you need to be able to check with the provider that you're buying from. If I go abroad, say you're lying on the beach and somebody's going, oh, you can take a little boat out, a little boat trip, and you say, oh, I want to go sailing or something like that. Um, then you're able to phone your insurers and add that on. But not all providers allow you to do that. So check before you go that you are able to do that if you want to have that flexibility.
Okay. And the other thing that's come to mind, which I think popped up in the session the other week or the few weeks ago, that you definitely covered, but I think it was worth knowing because I didn't know this either. Is you talked about people who will go and stay. So a lot of people got relatives abroad.
Mhm.
They might
Yeah,
go and stay. They've bought their insurance for a period of time, and their relatives go, "So well, stay a bit longer if you don't need to go back for appointments or you haven't got anything on, you can stay." So extending that cover or buying new insurance, how about that? Because I remember you specifically
yeah.
saying that there is an issue there with it when your trip is not starting in the UK when you've bought that extra insurance. So if you could explain that, that would be really helpful as
Yeah,
well.
yeah. So most travel insurance policies, you've got to buy them before you travel in the UK. There are a very few that allow you to buy your policies once you've travelled. Now, in the situation that you're describing, you're staying with relatives and somebody wants to stay on a wee bit longer and things like that. Again, check with your provider before you leave the country if this is am I able to extend this policy while I'm away, if needs be. Now, if you're away and say you have an accident, you need to stay longer because you're hospitalized and things like that, those policies will automatically
Yeah,
extend for you because that's part of the claims process. But if you just decided you want to stay because you're having a lovely time, you don't need to go back, you're not working or anything like that, again, that's something you need to check before you leave the UK. If I need to extend this while I'm away, is that a possibility? And can I just phone you up and do it and pay the extra money? Again, just check. Some providers will allow it, some won't,
others won't.
but always
Okay.
check before you leave the country.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you. And then I think it's a bit obvious as to, the answer to this question, but I'm still going to ask it. And when should I take cover out? But it's still worth going over and reiterating.
Yeah. So we always recommend taking your travel insurance out as soon as you book the holiday. Sometimes, if you've got a very complex medical condition or um, your ongoing treatment and things, you might not be able to get travel insurance at the moment, but you still want to book that holiday. So sometimes, if you've got quite a complex condition or a life limiting condition, you might not be able to get cover until about 2 months before you travel.
Right.
Um, so although we're saying try and take it out straight away, sometimes you can't always, depending on your medical condition. But my advice on that situation is see if you can book and maybe just pay a very low deposit until you are able to take the cover out. because a lot of travel agents and things, they'll sort of say, oh, you can just put £100 deposit down and that books a holiday, and you don't pay the full amount until nearer the time. So
Okay.
your actual exposure to, losing a lot of money doesn't happen till much closer to when you're going to travel. When if you have got one of these complex medical conditions, you're more likely to, you'll be in that zone to be able to try and look for cover.
Okay. And we talked a little bit about the sort of types of policies, and you mentioned about single trip and about multi-trip or annual policies as well. But of course, loads of us, I forgot to sort of bring this up at the time, but loads of us got insurance, travel insurance through our bank account. So
Hmm.
what do those of us that have those types of cover need to know? Presumably, we need to check with the bank account that it's going to cover everything, and particularly if we've had a cancer diagnosis in
Hmm.
the recent times, but also just to make sure that it covers everything that you need. And presumably you can top that up if needs be through the bank itself to
Yeah.
be able to top that up for whatever you need.
I mean, I would always say if you've got cover with the bank, that would be my first stop first. I would speak to my bank first, see if they're willing to offer me cover after my cancer diagnosis. You might need to go through a screening process, and they'll ask you, some medical questions. They might offer cover at an additional premium. Um, so just get that in writing, and then they'll update that for you. Some banks will cover, some banks won't. My bank just wouldn't cover me even when I was just on endocrine treatment. They just wouldn't cover me because I was taking a cancer drug. But I know there are some banks that will cover you once you just move on to purely like an endocrine treatment.
Okay, and endocrine, we're by that then we mean hormone therapy, so things
Yeah,
like tamoxifen and letrozole and
exactly. If
those
that's
sorts of
all you're
things.
taking,
Just to, yeah,
there are some banks that will
okay.
um, allow you to top their cover up with that.
Okay. And all the information that we've talked about, and probably even more, then we're going to point people to Travel Insurance Explained
Yeah.
website, which you're really happy that is a good place to go. Obviously, it's
Yes.
not your company website,
No.
so it's a very neutral place to go and have a look. And they have actually got a page about traveling once you've had a cancer diagnosis, and whether you've moved on from treatment, you finished your treatment, or whether it is that you are living with that cancer. It's still got some really good top tips.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, it's got
So
lots of tips, and it's got some links and things there as well to help you look for cover. But it's a
okay.
non-commercial website. It doesn't sell travel insurance.
Okay. Just got a question in from Camilla. Hi, I've just seen this on. Welcome, Camilla. I'm glad you found us. You might want to go back and watch this retrospectively, which anybody can do. It'll stay on Facebook for people to go back if you want to share this with people. And also it'll be on YouTube in the coming days if you want to have a look at Breast Cancer Now's YouTube channel as well. You can find all our recordings from the Facebook Lives on there as well. But Camilla says, I got a diagnosis last week. And I've seen the oncologist today. I'm due to go away on the 5th of April, and I don't know if it's possible now. I am insured. Do I contact them now, or do I wait until I know if I can go? It's a rolling insurance I've had for a few years.
Okay, you would need to let your insurer know that you've been diagnosed with cancer. Um, they might withdraw the cover depending on if they will cover you or not. And again, depending on whether you're going to wait and go away. Some people, after a diagnosis, they might wait and go away on holiday and then come back. We hear a lot of people do, a lot of people do that. Um, so once you know what you're going to do, I would definitely speak to your insurer and see if they're still willing to cover you. You might have to pay an additional premium, or they might withdraw cover depending on what their risk appetite is.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, good luck, Camilla,
Yeah,
and
Camilla. And we
hope it
we
all
have
goes well for
talked
you.
already. If you've only just found us, hopefully you might have seen this, you might not have done it, about ways to be able to reduce the cost of cover and travel insurance, so that actually quite a lot of companies are happy for you to swap dates, even if you don't sort of cancel outright, and actually traveling at a different time after you've completed surgery, after you've completed treatment and everything's okay, actually that makes a difference to the premium. So if you want to go back over and see the conversation that we've already had, that might be helpful. Just want to remind you, Camilla, as well, Breast Cancer Now are here for you, and our helpline 0808 800 6000. Our nurses are on there as well, and that goes for anybody out there. I need to remind everybody that we're not travel insurance experts, and that's why we've got Fiona with us today as nurses, but we're really happy to hear from anybody that has got any issues about this, and any question that you want to ask us on the helpline, or just want to have a chat with somebody, or just be heard and just be listened to, then the helpline's there 9 till 4, Monday to Friday. So we're open tomorrow at 9, and also on a Saturday 9 till 1. So yes, sending you lots of luck, Camilla, with both your travel and you're going forward after your diagnosis and your treatment. There are loads and loads of people around you that know. So if you want to be in contact with them through us as well, they know what it's like to be in your shoes. I just want to move on, if I can now, to some travel tips, because there are things that sort of come to mind. And having travelled with a cancer diagnosis,
Yeah.
I think, over and above the insurance, which is obviously what we're here to talk about and we've featured heavily on,
Yeah.
then I just want to ask a few questions about travel tips. So
Mhm.
one of the things, as my role as clinical nurse specialist for secondary breast cancer, an awful lot of the people I come into contact with are on clinical trials. So
Yeah.
does being on a clinical trial, make a difference to your ability to travel, or indeed actually the travel insurance as well?
No, you can still get cover even though you're on a clinical trial. The only thing you won't have cover for is if, say, for example, you've booked your holiday and the trial then says, actually, we need you on that date. You wouldn't be able to cancel that holiday
Okay.
and get your money back. But if anything goes wrong medically and things like that, while you're abroad, or you need to cancel because you picked up an infection or something, all of that's
All of
covered,
that is
whether
covered.
if you're on a trial or not.
Okay.
So yeah, that's not a problem.
Okay. And I was also thinking about just things to take with you. What sorts of things do you think? Do you have a little bit of a mental checklist of things that
Yeah,
you
I
take?
do. I
I think
mean,
some of the websites have sort of some sort of checklists of and things,
yeah,
and there is
yeah.
information on one of our web pages as well. But it's really helpful to to hear from somebody that's travelled and is in the know as to what you find helpful.
So I always make sure I travel with prophylactic antibiotics, because the biggest risk to the majority of us really is picking up infections and things like that. And I also always make sure you've got the diarrhea tablets as well when you're going. It's like, it's always important because, again, just in a different country and because of the medications you take, you might be more prone to things like that. Um, so always do that. The other thing I did want to talk about, though, was fit to fly letters
Yeah.
and getting assistance at the airport. So if you feel you need assistance at the airport, you need to try and book that well in advance, because that can get booked out quite easily. But also be aware that if you are asking for extra assistance at the airport on the plane, they might ask you for a fit to fly letter. So anytime I'm going abroad, I always just arrange one. It takes about 2 weeks in advance to get it. And they're always worth having. And again, traveling with medications, check your medications, check they're legal in the country you're going to. If they're illegal in the country you're going to, it doesn't mean you can't take them. You just need to do a little bit more form filling. And that there's more advice on that on the Travel Insurance Explained website as well,
Brilliant.
explaining about bringing different drugs into the country. The other thing, I would always stress that you do is look for local medical facilities near to where you're traveling to, and also for a good pharmacist, um, to make sure that, if something goes wrong, that you know where you're going to go and things like that. But and also make sure you've got your treating team's telephone number, because if you do start getting a temperature or something like that, you've
Yeah.
got your antibiotics. This has happened to me before on holiday. Started to spike a bit of a temperature, called my team, and I have a couple of different antibiotics that I travel with, and they say, right, this is what, had a bit of a sore throat. So there we go. Just, can you start that? Call us back in a couple of hours. Let us know how you're doing. Temperature starts going down and everything's fine. So I didn't have to go anywhere. But it's always just worth that. Really handy having your own antibiotics with you.
Okay, and I suppose it goes without saying, just making sure that you've got an adequate supply of any medicines that you are
Yes.
taking, treatment or otherwise, a
Hmm.
whole host of other things that people might take, particularly if
Yeah.
they're on ongoing treatment for those with secondary breast cancer, etc. But also, yeah, just making sure you've got them in different places and that they're not all packed in your
Yeah. So
case in case that goes
yeah,
AWOL.
take
Just
hand
practical
luggage
things.
and case. Pack
Yeah.
across both.
Yeah, lovely. And the only other thing I was going to say is people might want to know about lymphedema. I don't think that doesn't make any difference, I don't think, to travel insurance, but you can
No,
correct
you
me
just
if
need to
I'm wrong.
declare. It will be something you need to declare on your travel insurance that you've got lymphedema. And that you'll be asked some questions about it. And yeah, I mean, you need to look after that on holiday, watch about burning and things like that. Or, speak to your team, should you be wearing your compression garment when you're flying,
Yeah,
things like that.
yeah,
And,
absolutely.
make sure hydration when you're flying if you've
Yeah.
got lymphedema.
Yeah, so there are more and more travel tips for
Yeah,
everybody, but also for people that have got had a cancer diagnosis and a breast cancer diagnosis, things about getting up and walking on the plane. You've already mentioned about tamoxifen and increased risk of DVT. So if you're going on a long haul flight, that's really important. Hydration you've mentioned. So you can find lots of other travel tips on the website, our website, and also, obviously, the insurance through Travel Insurance Explained. We've put a link up to Macmillan's information as well as the Money Helper. So hopefully that's going to be of use to everybody. So I think I just want to draw us to a close. We've gone through 42 minutes actually since we started. I knew we'd fill it, and we've managed to answer a couple of questions. So it's great to have had everybody with us, but really just to sort of sum up, don't exclude that cancer from your insurance. It's really important to declare it, and it may or may not, depending on the timing of when that cancer diagnosis was. If you've been asked, you need to answer the questions that your
yeah,
traveling the insurance company are asking you honestly. Really, it's about side effects of treatment, not just the cancer. So even if you're feeling really, really well, you still need to sort of make sure that you declare that and make sure that you've got the cover that you need. Make sure you've got your GHIC, but it's no replacement for travel insurance as well. Make sure you get that cover before you book, so you're covered for all eventualities, unless there is that issue with you saying about being unwell or you're starting new treatment, that type of thing. But lots of information on Travel Insurance Explained. And if people do want to send us an email, so that's nurse@breastcancernow.org, or you want to pop another question in below in the chat here, and we haven't managed to specifically answer it. If you've joined us late, please do watch this again. We've gone through loads and loads of information, so hopefully we will be able to have covered your question. But I want to say a massive thank you, Fiona. As ever, you've been a minder of information, a really helpful information, because it's great to think that people can get cover and can travel safely after this, and that they can
yeah,
look forward to holidays. But it's making sure you can do it in the most cost effective way, but
yeah.
and chiefly safe way, to get out there and enjoy what's on offer in the world at large. So thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And we'll
Thanks
say
for
good
having
night
me.
for now, everybody. If you want to fill in that survey, the link's also in the chat as well. But give us your feedback and also give us some ideas, and we'll see you next time on our Facebook Live. Thank you so much.